Hi everybody, I'm Bonnie Barker with Bonnie Bay Crochet, but today I have something different to show you. I have an beginning knit project. Recently I taught on my watch.bonniebaycrochet.com channel a class on how to learn to knit, and it was designed especially for crocheters. I do have several other new beginning designs on my channel, and if you haven't seen those, you can go ahead and take a look in the video description below, and I'll put the links where you can get to those videos. This is a simple corner to corner baby blanket. It is knit in a similar fashion like the traditional dishcloth, and I do have those dishcloths also on my channel. You can look for that video. And this takes only one cake of yarn. I do teach the continental knitting method, which adapts incredibly easily and quickly to a crocheter's way of holding the yarn, so that it really does maximize your existing muscle memory in your hands when you crochet. So if you've wanted to knit and just have kept putting it off and just would like to take another look, take a look at this and see what you think. Well, let me go ahead and show you what you're going to need. For this project, I'm going to be using Yarnspirations Caron Color Orama Halo. This is the Perfect Phasing brand. And let's look at some of the stats on this. This is a number 5 weight yarn. So this yarn is 71% acrylic, 18% nylon, 11% polyester. And take note that it is a bulky or number 5 weight yarn. This 8-ounce cake has approximately 481 yards or 440 meters. Look across the bottom of your screen and I'll tell you how many of these I used. I just want to give you a look of the beautiful colorway. This is a very soft yarn and I'm finding it very flexible, making it a good candidate for a knitted baby blanket. I'm also using knitting needles, size 10 or 6.00 millimeter. And you can see I am using circular knitting needles. I am using a wire to make this a total of 40 inches from tip to tip, but you can get away with using a smaller connecting wire as well. I'm also recommending that you have a yarn needle and a pair of sharp scissors handy. We're going to start with a cast on of 8 stitches, so I would pull off maybe 10 to 12 inches. That's probably more than you're going to need. Make a slip knot, and then we're going to slip that over our knitting needle. And I'm going to go on the slower side because I have I'm going to turn that here, many new knitters in my community, so I'm going to take this one a bit slow. So once we put that slip knot on our knitting needle, we're going to cast on 8 loops, and this does count as our first loop. And I'm using a long tail cast on, and I'll do this slowly in case you need a little bit more help. Put my finger and my thumb together under the little tent here, grab both strands, open the finger and thumb, and now we're going to scoop under and then go over. We're going to do this 7 times because we already have a loop here. And you don't want this to be super tight. You want it to be on the loose side, but not crazy loose either. So just a normal kind of a tension. And if you find your yarn is untwisting like mine is right here, go ahead and drop it and let it twist back up naturally again. So that's 6, 7, and 8. 4. Make sure to do a double check. So now we're ready to begin with row 1, and we are using the continental style. Go ahead and get your yarn into your yarn hold, and then we're going to just knit, going into the back of the stitch. Stick the needle in, wrap forward, pull up a loop, and then pull it off. So we're going to do that 8 times. The first couple of stitches might be a little on the looser side because of the tail there, but don't let that worry you too much. Again, stick the needle in behind, wrap forward, pull up a loop, and then slide off. If I'm going too fast, I apologize. You can slow this down both on the YouTube platform as well as the watch channel platform. Right around this area, you may have to stop the video. You'll see a little gear shaped icon. You can click on that. It brings up a playback speed, and you just simply select a slower playback. Okay, so we have one more. Okay, so we have knit 8 stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and turn. Now that we've turned, we're on to row 2. Now rows 2 through 7 are all going to be worked the same. We're going to increase a stitch at the very beginning, and I'm going to show you how to do that. This is what they call knit front and back, or KFB in knitting notation. And what we're going to do is we're going to stick the needle in the usual place, pull up a loop, but before we pull it off, we're going to go to the back of that same stitch, and we're going to knit it again. So we end up with 2 loops instead of 1. So we have increased a stitch there, and then we just knit the rest of the stitches all the way across. So we're going to do this 7 times. So that was 1. I'll do this with you again once we get to the end of this row. You can see this yarn really does flex for us, so it's a good candidate in my opinion for a knitting project. So that is after 2 rows. Now I've turned, and this is going to be row 3. We're going to knit the front. Remember, we're going to do an increase and knit front and back. Knit the front, and we're going to go to the back side and also knit that stitch. So you have 2 loops, and then we slide it off, and we're increasing. So at the end of this row, we're going to have 10 loops. So we're going to increase until we have 16 or so loops on the hook, or on the needle. Sorry, I'm primarily a crocheter, so the word hook comes into play far more often than needles do. So I just beg your forgiveness on that. Okay, so this is what you should have after 3 rows. I'm going to go ahead and turn. So after turning, we're going to do this again. Knit the front and knit the back. So this is row 4. Let me move my scissors out of the way so you don't hear all those extra noises. Come on, there we go. Okay, so this is what you should have after 4 rows. So go ahead and work the next 4 rows the same way, increasing. Of course, you're going to turn, and then you're going to knit the front and the back of that front stitch. So now the next row, which is row 9, we are going to repeat until the blanket reaches its width diagonally. Okay, and I will tell you how many stitches that you will need at that point, which I am going to begin decreasing to bring the blanket back. So we're basically going to be making a blanket in a triangle like this, and then like this, kind of like working corner to corner, which is a popular technique in crochet, but this is just a fun way to do it with knit. Okay, so now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to knit 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to add a stitch by using the yarn over, or YO, in knitting abbreviation language. Okay, so we're going to just yarn over just like that, just as simply as that. Let me do that again. So a yarn over is like this, and then we continue to knit. And so let's stop here, and that yarn over is right here, and that added a loop. So that's all we're doing for every row, is to just yarn over and add that single loop. And then we knit our way all the way to the very end. And of course, it goes without saying that with each additional row that you knit, you will have one additional loop or stitches on your needles. Okay, so now I've turned my needles around again, and we're going to knit across the row. But first, we knit 4 stitches, just like we did the last row. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then again yarn over, and then we continue to knit all the way across. Make sure that you stop, make sure that you have that yarn over. I do. And knit all the way to the end. And so all you need to do at this point is to repeat this until the blanket diagonally is the width that you desire, or until, look across the bottom of the screen, that number of loops is on your knitting needle. So I'm going to stop once I finish this row, and I'm going to show you what we are doing with the yarn over. Okay, so now I wanted to show you that when you yarn over in that manner, it actually creates a space or a hole just like this. And I will do several more rows with these increases each one, and you're going to see these holes, which are the yarn overs, that are going to create quite a lovely border pattern on your baby blanket. After repeating this row, the increased row, until I have a total of 117 loops on my needles, this is what I now have. So now we have approximately 23 inches by 23 inches if you measure from the corner where we first started to the last row worked. Now if you want your project to be larger than this, you can just continue on until the sides or the length of the edges measure the width and depth of the blanket, because this is going to be a square. All right, now if you do that, if you continue to increase and do not start decreasing at this point, you're going to need more yarn. So just keep that in mind. So if you're not using this particular yarn, it should be fine. But if you are using this yarn, you're going to want to start changing now, changing to the decrease rows that I'm about to show you right now. So for the decrease rows, it's going to be a little bit different. Okay, we're going to knit 1, 2, 3, and on the 4th stitch, we're going to knit 2 stitches together, just like this. We're going to stick our needle into 2 loops at the same time. Wrap, pull the loop through, and then pull them off. Now we're going to increase by wrapping the needle again, just like we've been doing, and then we're going to follow that with another decrease. And I'll take this nice and slow. So we have 2 loops that we're going to knit together, or K, the number 2, and TOG is the way that is represented in a lot of written patterns. So let's stop and see what we've done. We knit 3, we knit 2 together here, that's what this loop represents. We wrapped to increase, and then we knit 2 together again. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this for the beginning of each row from this point on. And then after you do this at the beginning, you're just going to knit each stitch off just in a regular way like we've been doing. Knit to the end of the row, and that is all you have to do for the decrease row. So let me just do a little bit of math with you here again. Going back 1, 2, 3 stitches we knit. We knit 2 together, so that's subtract 1 stitch from the stitch count. And then we wrapped to add the loop. And what this is going to do is this can continue this opening nice trim all the way around. And then after that, we knit 2 together again. So thereby, we end up with a deficit of negative 1 stitch. We've subtracted 1 stitch by doing all of that. So again, I am repeating myself here. I understand that. So go ahead and just continue to knit all the way to the end of the row. Then we turn, and then we do this again. We do the knit 3, knit 2 together, wrap to add and increase, and then we knit 2 together again. And you do that continually, and then what will happen is this will get smaller and smaller, and eventually it'll just decrease until it starts looking like this on the other end. So I'm going to go ahead and work several of these, and then I'll show you what your baby blanket should look like. So go ahead and work that, and I'll show you what I have. I have now worked this until I have about 17 loops on the needles. And in the center, we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops. So now at this point, I am no longer going to work in the pattern stitch. Instead, I'm going to work a decrease over the first 2 stitches, and then we're just going to knit all the way across, and we're going to do that until we have 7 stitches or 7 loops left on the needles. So let me go ahead and start that with you. So just to be clear, we're going to knit 2 together and then knit all the way across. We're not going to be working the knit 2 together and then add a stitch by looping. We're just going to work knit, knit, knit all the way across the row. So go ahead and complete that. I've gone ahead and turned, and we're just going to continue doing that again and again. So I'm going to have you repeat this. I'm going to show it to you one more time. Make sure I get this in the viewfinder. I'm going to knit 2 together and then just knit the remaining loops off. And as we do that, you're going to notice that the center holes that were formed here, they're going to start disappearing as we work additional rows. So just keep doing that, decreasing 1 stitch at the beginning as you go. So I've worked this until I have 8 loops remaining. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to still knit these 2 together. Okay, and then I'm going to knit 1 more off, and then I'm going to pause. I'm going to bring this loop on top of that other loop. Let's make sure we get all of the strands here. And I'm going to pull this up a little bit just to kind of loosen it some. So you want to try to do this a little bit on the looser side. You don't want this to be real tight, but on the other hand, you don't want it to be really loose. So you might need to play with this a little bit to get the tension just right. So that's what we're doing for the rest of this. We're just going to knit the project, or knit the stitch off, and then pull the loop over that stitch. This is called binding off. I'm just going to work the rest of these since there are so few of them. And then the last one. Now you do have one loop left, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut a generous strand. Pardon that wire. Okay, so where did we go? All right, so we have the loop here, and we can just pull that through. And go ahead and pull it a little bit taut. And so now, you can just play with that a little bit. So now the ending of the blanket matches the beginning. Okay, so, but now we do need to hide that loose strand. Let me go ahead and thread the needle. There are many different ways you can do this, and it really doesn't matter which side you hide it on because this blanket is totally reversible. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to turn it to hide it on the other side. I'm going to bring this down. Okay, so there are, like I said, many different ways to do this, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring it down. Let's bring it down a little bit further into the work. And I'm going to bring it up. Then I'm going to follow the curve. We're going to do I guess smiles and umbrellas. We're going to bring it up here. And I'm going to bring it up. And I'm going to bring it up through this loop. And going to follow the umbrella up here. Then I'm going to go down again. You know what? I went in the wrong place. Let's bring that back up. Let's go right down here. Do a smile, which is at the bottom there, and then back up so that we can do a little umbrella. And this is one way in which you can work your strand into the work. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and trim that just a little bit, and so that strand is somewhat hidden, and so I just have one more strand to hide, and then I am completely done with my knit blanket. Well, I hope you enjoyed my corner to corner knit baby blanket today. If you did, I would love to hear from you. Please comment in the comments below. And like I said before, if you're looking for other beginning knit projects, please check them out in the playlist that I'll have in the video description for you below. God bless. Bye-bye.